Hello, and welcome to yet another edition of Warrior Supercast, the podcast for the Winton Woods School District, highlighting the superstars that are within the district. I am fortunate to have a full table with me tonight, and of course joining me to start things off is Dr. Terry Holden, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. How are you, Dr. Holden?
How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad that we were able to catch you before you take some travels.
Yes.
You'll be going over to China here soon.
Yes, and doing a lot of new tech travel.
Exactly. And we kind of got together today, not only because it's our monthly duty to be together, but we have pretty much like a progress report, so to speak. We are 6 months into the new tech here at Winton Woods School District, and I'm very fortunate to have with me, along with us, the principals. Once again, giving that shine as to what's going on. Dr. Holden, is there something that we would like to kind of preface this discussion with a kind of an early overview of what's gone on in 2016 to what's going into 2017?
Sure. Well, as you know, we are transforming the district over the next 2 years with our partnership with the New Tech Network. So this year, for the 16-17 school year, 3 buildings really are what I would call full new tech. That means project-based learning in every class all the time. And that is the high school. They're continuing their work with that. And then Winton Woods Middle School and Winton Woods Intermediate. So those 3 buildings have really experienced pretty transformational change this year. And I think I've been meeting with the principals this week, in fact, for updates, and it's going well. You know, the work is hard. It's hard for the leaders. It's hard for the teachers, and certainly the students have experienced a change. But it's a good mid-year checkpoint.
I think that's a great way to start us off. Let's start with the newbies of new tech. Let's start with Mr. Sanker with the middle school. How do you feel that has kind of evolved in your realm over at the middle school?
Yeah, well, we recently did a survey of our students to kind of see what their experiences have been with the new tech model and the project-based learning, and we got a lot of good feedback about hands-on project-based learning units. Are kind of are the sweet spot for middle school students. So when our science teachers have kids creating things or working with maps or working with different concepts within earth science, creates probably the most memorable units for our students. So I think that's one thing that it's an area that we're really growing in.
I kind of started with you in the fact that, you know, you have those able minds at the very early onset at the intermediate school, which we'll be getting to with Mr. Day, and then you are actually in that transformative stage where eventually they'll go to Mr. Martin, and you know, sky's the limit for them. And again, that's why we have you anchoring here. Mr. Day, talking about the intermediate school, how is that? Again, this is literally brand new for these kids, and you know, on all aspects. But again, you're dealing with those great minds that are just getting ready to understand what that next jump is. And how do you feel the new tech program has actually enhanced your school?
I think the biggest part, and it's kind of like what Mr. Sanker said about as far as the students in the survey, we actually did a student panel one time with some of our coaches and Upper Central office folks, and the students, they're very highly engaged. There's a lot more engagement than what there's been in the past. We're seeing a good number of decreased behavior referrals as well, which kind of goes to that engagement piece, because that's always been one of the things I think sometimes we haven't been as exciting in class. So kids, if they get bored, they'll find something to do. So we need to make sure that they're actively engaged there. So that's been the biggest thing. Another part is the staff collaboration piece. That's been really interesting to see. We always thought we collaborated really well before, but now we realize how much better we need to be and have gotten. But it's hard. It's hard work, like Dr. Holden said. It's not easy, but it's fun. And you know, if it's something that's hard, it's usually worth doing. So.
Sure. And then Mr. Martin, of course, the veteran of all of this here, the anchor, so to speak. What have you noticed that's been new, especially now that we're bringing them all through? You've seen a few years go through this. What is different? What is new? What is still exciting?
First thing I would say, you're being too kind by calling me the veteran. One thing learning with project-based learning, you never really got it to where you can sit back and say, I'm finished and I know what I'm doing and I always got it. It's one of those things where you're consistently learning, and we even changed the title of teachers to facilitators because everybody in the process is learning. So it's an ongoing, ever extending process. You know, so we're just blessed to know that we have a whole district commitment. Just that whole idea, just that whole thought about one day we're going to be in a situation to where every kid that comes through our door that has been with us for multiple years before they get to the 9th grade will know how to navigate ECHO. Will know the expectations and the foundation around trust, respect, and responsibility. Will know the major components of a project-based learning unit. Will know and will be able to advocate coming in the door for themselves. It's amazing to have a conversation with a junior and a senior. Now we have to prepare ourselves for having conversations with incoming 9th graders that have this confidence about themselves and are able to advocate about their own experience and what they expect the adults to deliver to them as they go down this learning journey. It's overwhelming, it's exciting, and I really can't wait.
Sure. The one thing that I'm piecing out of this, and what I'm hearing that we hadn't heard back at the early starts of 2016, was the engagement between you as facilitators and leaders to the students, and that very close connection now. Do you feel that New Tech and the project-based learning model has allowed for a different door to open to make that happen?
Yeah, it really leads itself to an opportunity to have a different relationship with your learners. You know, one of the things that always overwhelms me is when you get students who are able to advocate for themselves, and they're advocating for themselves based on really understanding and trusting the process. So they understand what this component's supposed to do and how it's supposed to impact and what I'm supposed to master through this component. So if it don't quite go the way it's supposed to go, there's a collegial conversation between students and teachers, which is amazing to see, but it's a natural progression through this process, and that's what you want. You want critical thinkers. You want kids to be able to come in and really own whatever it is they're doing.
Let's talk about the younger kids. I mean, I'm sure you're seeing something completely different now.
I think the kids really actually appreciate the fact that the adults are learning with them, and they're not just giving them all the information all the time. I think they really appreciate that. I think they feel like they've got more ownership in their learning that way. And I just think this has been a fantastic experience already, and we're just right in the middle of it, right in the beginning, you know. So I'm really excited to see what happens here in the future. But I really think they just appreciate the fact that we're all learning this together.
Yeah, it's a paradigm shift for our students as we utilize the concept of agency, which is students being responsible for their own learning. So those conversations have changed from I'm your teacher, I want you to do this, to you're the learner. This is what a direction that you could go. So,
do you think the word expectation has changed in your mindset, or maybe in what the students are expecting of themselves, what you were expecting of the because that's what I'm sensing, that definition has changed. And I mean, I don't know how you see it in your schools, but I mean, that's how I'm feeling.
For us, you know, we use expectation all the time. We don't talk about rules. We don't talk about the don'ts. We talk about the expectation, because when we say expectation, there's some ownership. And we really grab a hold of that, and we use it as much as we possibly can. And when we start creating expectations for young people, typically they live up to those expectations, and then you'll get an overall change in your building. My building feels different because of expectations.
I think that the kids, going back to what Mr. Martin said about the kids advocating for themselves, I think the kids are actually, I think they're wanting that from their teachers. I mean, I think they're really holding almost teachers to expectations too, that, you know, before the teachers it was this is the way it is and that's it. There's more choice now, you know, and it's really more of a team effort than it was before. So I think they're really relying on their teachers to have those high expectations as well.
Yeah, and I think that goes for collaboration as well. Now they're relying on their peers as well, so that changes that too.
Another definition that may be changing, and maybe I'm not I obviously am not there to see it, but the idea of failure, I don't think it is something that you're looking at because it's not necessarily considered failure, because from the sounds of what everybody is saying, that's not the option anymore. It's looking for a new path. I think Mr. Day, you said it best, that they're looking for that. They're looking for their teachers to go with them in that journey. Am I even anywhere near that idea of failure or lack of failure, that willingness to try?
Jason, I think that really encapsulates what we're trying to do. So
Sure.
This is an innovative model. Now, I'm going to say that we're not going to fail. Right?
That's fair.
But there are different kinds of failures, and I think we learn from failures. And far too often in education, we've taught our children that to fail is bad. And so we've created this situation where we don't learn from mistakes we make and missteps that we have. So if I think back to what you said about expectations, the adult expectations have changed.
Mm-hmm.
So we not only do we expect more, I mean, I expect more of the principals and of myself and of the teachers and students, but it's that expectation. With that is there's this room to try and fail. And that's great. So if we try and fail and learn, that's the best scenario,
Sure.
right? That's how we move forward.
And I think maybe, failure is a harsh word. We've grown up with that word being a very negative connotation, but I'm thinking that this is starting to make that change, that flux to fail may be, I didn't succeed in this, but I succeeded in a different avenue, in a different way, but I made this work.
Well, I think one of the unique things about the model that we chose and the model that we use, which is the project-based learning, the new tech model, we use school-wide learning outcomes. And, there has to be some transition for the teachers in order to make sense of what's actually happening. But as you use school-wide learning outcomes and you take something like knowledge and thinking, which is the content, it gives the student the opportunity to still show what they know, even if they didn't show as much agency and the project was turned in late. So as opposed to just destroying the kid for everything, our ultimate goal is for kids to master. So it still gives us an opportunity to gauge if they master, while at the same time holding that expectation around agency in regards to turning it in. So you don't totally destroy the kid and the kid's confidence. So we have a system that's created to help us make this transition while at the same time make sense of learning.
That makes sense. One of the Dr. Holden, you always bring it up, and it's good to hear that warrior motto. And do you believe that when you were looking at project-based learning in the new tech model, that there was that great marriage between what you already had started to instill to what was out there to making that perfect gel and fit?
I mean, I think so. And so I'm not, when you say warrior motto, a lot of things come to mind.
Sure.
But I think when I think about this notion of warriors, right? We're strong. So with failure, if I can cycle back to that, when we allow kids to fail, when we allow teachers to fail, when I allow principals to fail and we learn and we grow, we develop this characteristic of persistence, right? And so for me, in charge of curriculum, I can see kids go off to college where they're going to encounter situations that are difficult, where they're going to fail. So if we've taught them how to fail correctly, right? Fail forward and go through it and be persistent and be persistent and be persistent, then that's a big win all the way around.
I love the way you said that, fail forward. It's not that falling backwards. It's a great way to look at, yes, I may not have succeeded in X, but Y is out there. You are listening to the Warrior Supercast here on Waycross Community Media. I am joined with the principals and, of course, with Dr. Holden here. Kind of wrapping things up at the low end here, we've already started 2016. 2017 is just here, just a few days old. Do you feel, as principals, when you started out this school year, knowing what you were going to be instituting and what was coming out, do you feel you're where you should be at the halfway mark? Are you above it or are you below it? And Mr. Day, we'll start with you.
I think that I thought I had a good idea of where we'd be at this time. I'm pretty happy with where we're at this time. Going in, like Mr. Martin said, you're never there, so knowing that going in, you're just always improving. So you're just constantly improving. And I see it every day. You know, I see it with the kids first and foremost, but then with the teachers as well. The building feels different. The culture is different. You know, academically, behaviorally, it's a different place, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, you know, we have a new tech coach that works with us, and she gives us feedback. You know, that we're in a good spot right now. We're about where we should be, and I feel that there's so much more we can do, and I want to keep pushing my staff and the students to keep to really achieve that model with a high degree of integrity. So I think we're in a good spot as a learning organization, but having my people continue to strive for better, I think that's where I am right now. So,
I think we're in a pretty decent spot. I wouldn't say that I'm right where I want to be. I always want more. I believe that our students are able to do things that we've never even imagined them doing before. I believe the same of the adults that work with our young people. So for me, I'm really never satisfied. I'm always pushing the envelope and trying to make sure that we meet kids and create opportunities that they've never imagined having before. So some may say we know what we're doing and we're in a great place, but I would say there's always room to grow. So we're going to keep pushing.
And speaking of growing, we did pass a very monumental levy over the November season. Dr. Holden, does that dream now light a greater torch forward?
Well, I think the bond issue that was generously passed by the voters in November allows us to see kind of this, I'm not going to say the end point, but
sure.
It lights up the road, right? Mm-hmm. So the work we're doing now, by the time the buildings are built and we move into those buildings, we will really have this, you know, down. Will we be there? No, because, you know, it's a lifelong piece, right? We're always learning and growing, but the buildings will be nice to enter into, having all of these, you know, skills, this different approach under our belt, and all buildings will have been involved for several years with that. So it's very exciting for all of us.
It'll be a new challenge.
It absolutely will be.
But again, moving forward and getting us to somewhere new.
Right.
Well, we have reached the bottom of our time. I want to thank all of the principals and, of course, Dr. Holden. I thank you for all joining us today, and I thank you for joining us as well. You have been listening and watching to the Warrior Supercast here on White Cross Community Media, the podcast that is highlighting the Winton Woods superstars of the district. Have a great evening, and we'll see you next month.